Imagine the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, and then silence. What truly happened to a gladiator when the arena lights dimmed? Was it glory, gruesome end, or something far more unexpected? We're diving deep into the untold post-battle lives, from battlefield medics to shocking social statuses, and the grim truth of those who fell. The final clang of metal against metal had faded, replaced by the distant echo of the crowd's murmurs, the soft shuffle of feet on stone, and the occasional call of a custodian gathering discarded equipment. In the arena's shadowed corridors, the air was warmer, less frenzied, carrying the lingering sense of dust, sweat, and the faint tang of iron. A gladiator stepped carefully, muscles taut and yet trembling with the residual adrenaline of combat, feeling the rough leather of his sandals press against his tired feet. Around him, other fighters moved silently, their breathing slow but deliberate, each absorbed in their own private reckoning with the performance just completed. Here, in these quiet chambers, there was no audience, no trumpets announcing victories, only the gentle rhythm of the city outside, the distant clatter of carts, the muffled conversations of citizens returning home, and the occasional splash of water from a nearby fountain. He allowed himself to sink onto the low wooden bench, the warmth of the sun through the open window brushing against his back, and closed his eyes. Relief was a tangible presence, an almost physical exhale of tension that rippled from the tip of his toes to the crown of his head. He could feel the minute aches of exertion, the stiffness of muscles that had held themselves rigid under the gaze of hundreds. But above all, there was stillness, a rare and treasured companion. In these moments, his mind wandered, replaying the dance of the arena not with pride or shame, but with a gentle, almost meditative attention to the subtle choices made in the heat of combat, the balance of his body, the careful timing of movements, the silent communication with opponents who had been equally aware of the delicate rhythm of engagement. There was a reverence in remembering these details, a quiet acknowledgement that each step, each motion had carried him through danger yet again, and that he had survived, still breathing, still present, still himself. The first act of care was the bath. Water, warm and fragrant with herbs such as rue and lavender, lapped against the skin with a gentle insistence that coaxed muscles to relax, softening the soreness that had settled deep beneath the skin. Hands, trained in the careful arts of massage, worked through tension with slow precision, spreading oil and balm, rubbing elbows, shoulders, and thighs until the body seemed to sigh with relief. The air smelled faintly of oil and steam, mingling with the remnants of sweat and dust, creating an aroma that was intimate, familiar, and calming. Beyond the physical, the mind sought its own self. Conversations were subdued but present, words of encouragement, shared observations, or simple acknowledgments of endurance. "You moved well," one might say, and another would nod in silent gratitude, aware that such words carried more weight than applause ever could. Anxiety lingered quietly at the edges, the anticipation of future battles, the ever-present question of fate and fortune. Yet, in these recovery hours, camaraderie became a shield, a gentle presence that reminded each man he was not alone in this precarious existence. Herbs and salves were as much ritual as medicine, each carefully chosen for its properties: rosemary to soothe, thyme to disinfect, and lavender to calm the mind. Fingers traced the lines of bruised muscles and small cuts, respecting the body's resilience and fragility alike. As he lay back, listening to the soft murmur of others and the distant hum of the city, he felt a profound sense of temporality, awareness of the body's impermanence, but also of the enduring cycles of care, of attention, of life continuing beyond the fleeting spectacle of combat. Outside the arena, life unfolded with a quiet rhythm, punctuated by routines that were both ordinary and extraordinary. Meals were simple, yet nourishing. bread and olives, cheese and fruit, sometimes a modest serving of fish or meat, and eaten slowly, the taste of each morsel appreciated after hours of exertion. Training persisted, but it was measured, respectful of recovery, an acknowledgement that strength was not only built in battle, but maintained with patience and consistency. There were small freedoms, subtle indulgences. Some gladiators favored reading, holding in hand a scroll of poetry or philosophy, tracing letters with attentive fingers, imagining distant lands or the thoughts of learned men long past. Others favored music, the low resonance of a lyre or the soft tapping of fingers on a wooden surface, a quiet echo that filled empty spaces. Conversations meandered slowly, touching on memories, jokes, or speculation about the world beyond the barracks walls. Each moment carried a delicate tension, the awareness that the arena awaited, that survival depended on preparation, skill, and sometimes luck. Yet even within this tension, there was the sweetness of calm, the satisfaction of mastery over routine, and the companionship of men who shared the same unspoken understanding of life's precarious beauty. The city itself became a backdrop of gentle impressions, the warmth of sunlit streets, the scent of baked bread wafting from ovens, the occasional clatter of a wagon on cobblestones. All these small sensory details became part of a quiet meditation, a layering of experience that grounded each man in the reality beyond spectacle, in the ordinary fabric of daily life that stretched between moments of extraordinary exertion. For some, the arena brought more than survival. It brought recognition, a peculiar kind of fame that was slow and nuanced, woven through whispers in marketplaces, letters from admirers, and the occasional invitation to a private event in the homes of wealthy patrons. Gifts arrived, a small vase, a silken scarf, a coin with a thoughtful inscription, and each item carried weight beyond its material value, the acknowledgement of skill, endurance, and presence. Social interactions were measured. Conversations in the shade of porticos or in the quiet of private rooms were deliberate, often carrying subtext, subtle cues, and unspoken expectations. A nod here, a carefully chosen phrase there, could influence perception, open opportunity, or avert envy. Politics, though distant from the blood of the arena, crept slowly into these spaces, a reminder that even the strongest body could be entangled in subtle networks of influence. For the gladiator, attention to nuance became as important as attention to combat, a practice of the mind that mirrored the care given to the body. In these hours, the city outside seemed to pulse with possibility, with movement, with quiet intrigue. The gladiator walked through gardens, listened to music, watched the slow turning of the sun over tiled roofs, aware of his own presence in a world that had many layers beyond the roar of the arena. Recognition was gentle, fortune measured, and life moved forward with a deliberate grace, the body's skill mirrored by the mind's cautious awareness of power, respect, and subtle influence. Time inevitably brought change. Some gladiators retired, stepping away from the arena with scars both visible and invisible. They taught, trained younger men, or returned to modest life within the city, carrying with them the rhythm of past battles, the lessons of discipline, endurance, and reflection. Their steps were slower but confident, movements deliberate, their presence marked by a quiet dignity earned through years of focus and survival. In these later years, reflection deepened. The body, once honed to meet immediate challenges, now became a map of memory, a record of past exertions and resilience. Conversations with peers revolved around the subtle joys of life: gardens, quiet readings, the taste of wine or bread, the sun's warmth on stone steps. Each moment carried meaning, a gentle meditation on survival, on humanity, on the delicate threads that bind life together across time. The legacy of a gladiator was never only in the applause, the fleeting adoration, or even the survival itself. It was in the cultivation of awareness, of body and mind, of community and solitude, of history lived deeply and deliberately. And in the quiet evening, when lamps glimmered across stone floors and the distant city hummed softly, the mind could wander freely, resting in the knowledge that life, in all its complexity, had been met with presence, courage, and reflective calm. As night drew its velvet curtain across the city and the gentle sounds of Rome's heart slowed, one could imagine these men, once warriors, now resting, breathing, remembering, and quietly, slowly becoming part of the city's enduring story. A story carried in silence, reflection, and the calm continuity of life beyond the spectacle. As the sun sank lower, the streets of Rome softened in tone, shadows stretching across the stone floors and walls, carrying the faint scent of warm bread from distant bakeries and herbs from small gardens. The retired gladiator moved slowly through a quiet courtyard, each step deliberate, feeling the friction of his sandals on the sun-warmed stone, the subtle vibration of his body as he walked. A fountain nearby murmured gently, water spilling over moss-covered stones, mixing with the earthy aroma of damp soil and herbs, a sensory tapestry that invited quiet reflection. Sitting on a low bench, he closed his eyes and allowed his mind to drift. Memories of past battles surfaced, not with pride or shame, but as calm, meticulous observations, the timing of a step, the subtle gesture of an opponent, the rhythm of the crowd's energy. Each memory layered upon the present, merging the sensations of the past with the soft sounds, smells, and textures of the courtyard. His breathing slowed, deep and rhythmic, and for the first time in hours, or sometimes days, he felt entirely present in the moment. Occasionally, a fellow retired gladiator would approach. Their conversation was minimal yet profound, consisting of a soft nod, a shared reflection, or a gentle reminder. Observe everything: the wind, the sunlight, the people passing by. All teach you balance. Often silence followed, richer and more instructive than words. The evening deepened, lamplights flickering in the shadows, the cool breeze brushing against his skin, and the distant murmur of the city became a gentle, meditative hum. In the mornings, young trainees arrived at the old gladiator's courtyard. Greetings were quiet, voices calm and measured. The sessions began slowly. Footwork, balance, the handling of wooden weapons, and the alignment of posture. Each repetition was deliberate, designed not merely to strengthen the body, but to cultivate awareness of movement, timing, and mental focus. The tactile and auditory details of training were emphasized: the weight of the wooden sword in the hand, the friction of leather sandals on stone, the soft echo of footsteps, the subtle shift of the wind. Corrections were quiet, almost whispered. Feel the weight. Let your body guide your motion. Notice the rhythm of each step. Students repeated, internalized, absorbed. The lessons extended beyond the physical. Patience, observation, emotional control, and the calm acceptance of mistakes were just as important as strength or skill. After training, discussions unfolded slowly in the courtyard, focusing on philosophy, the patterns of the city, human behavior, or reflections on past battles. Stories of mistakes, of endurance, of observation were shared, not for glory, but to impart the deeper rhythms of life. The day faded. The sensory environment, warm sunlight, fragrant herbs, distant city sounds, blending with the lessons to create a meditative, reflective atmosphere. Some retired gladiators returned fully to ordinary city life, tending households, crafting, or caring for gardens. Days moved deliberately, each task approached with care and attention. Kneading dough, slicing fruit, heating fish, every act became sensory meditation. The warmth of the sun shifting across the floor, the faint aroma of bread and herbs, the gentle breeze entering through a window, all became part of a quiet, conscious rhythm. Gardens were tended with similar mindfulness, pruning herbs, observing growth, feeling soil texture, listening to soft water flow, watching birds or insects. Each sensory detail, sound, touch, scent, movement, was absorbed slowly, a reminder of presence beyond the violence of the arena. Social interactions were measured. Quiet greetings, respectful nods, short conversations with neighbors or merchants. Past fame lingered subtly, yet life now revolved around ordinary experiences. Reflection deepened as memories of battles, fleeting recognition, and fortune layered gently into daily life. Each movement, each breath, each sensation reinforced the quiet continuity of life, the presence of self, and the patient observation of the world. Time inevitably sharpened awareness of mortality. The body became fragile, yet the mind grew reflective, layered with wisdom born from endurance, observation, and patience. Evenings were spent quietly, observing the moonlight, stars, the long shadows cast across walls, and the subtle rustle of the city settling into calm. Thoughts wandered to past victories and losses, the choices made, the bonds formed, and the lessons learned. Not to dwell, but to integrate experience into understanding. Legacy was subtle, yet enduring. Knowledge passed to students, lessons on reflection, patience, mindfulness, and deliberate action. The story of the gladiator was no longer spectacle, but a lived, observed human experience. Even as night deepened, with lamplight flickering softly and the city silent, the retired warrior's presence felt steady, calm, and absorbed in the quiet rhythm of life. Each breath, each step, each remembered moment merged into a reflective meditation on human endurance, sensory awareness, and the calm flow of time beyond the arena. The retired gladiator breathed slowly, his mind attentive yet relaxed, each sense alive, quietly absorbing the world. Past battles, the fleeting rush of fame, fortune, and human experience layered seamlessly with the simple rhythms of daily life. And as sleep approached, each reflection, each sensory impression, each memory became part of a gentle, enduring story, one that could be carried quietly into the night, leaving the listener calm, contemplative, and entirely immersed in the humanity of ancient Rome. Morning light seeped softly through narrow windows, spilling across stone floors and warmed the courtyard tiles. The retired gladiator stirred gently, each movement deliberate, feeling the subtle stiffness in his shoulders and legs, a quiet reminder of years of exertion. Before rising, he paused, inhaling the earthy aroma of damp stone and herbs, listening to the faint chatter of early merchants and the distant clatter of carts moving along cobblestone streets. He washed his face slowly, letting cool water trickle down and awaken his senses. Every touch was deliberate. The texture of stone basin, the warmth of sunlight on damp skin, the faint smell of soap or herbal oil. Breath deepened, steadying both body and mind. In these moments, there was no rush, only a meditative presence, an awareness of how each day began and how the flow of time itself moved gently, insistently, carrying life forward. Breakfast followed quietly. Bread slightly toasted, olives pressed gently between fingers, cheese crumbled slowly onto a plate, perhaps a small fish warmed over embers. Each bite was savored deliberately, flavor lingering on the tongue, aroma filling the small room. With each meal, he observed the world around him, a bird landing on a nearby roof, the soft rustle of leaves in the garden, the distant hum of city life slowly building. After eating, he would walk through the courtyard, stretching slowly, observing the angle of sunlight as it shifted across tiles and stone walls. Each breath, each stretch, each motion a quiet celebration of survival, a ritual of care for the body and mind. Occasionally, a young trainee might arrive, bow slightly, and begin his own morning exercises. Words were few, but presence was shared. Eyes met, subtle nods exchanged, lessons already quietly absorbed in silence. Days were punctuated by small, deliberate tasks. Tending the garden became more than work. It was meditation. Hands pressed into soil, fingers tracing root patterns, leaves brushed gently, water flowing in measured streams over plant beds. Sensory awareness was fully alive. The damp earth, the rough texture of bark, the sweet fragrance of herbs, the warmth of sun on the skin. Even simple tasks like sweeping the courtyard or mending sandals carried rhythm, pattern, and subtle satisfaction. The retired gladiator sometimes repaired weapons, not for combat, but as practice in focus and patience. He traced the lines of the blade, felt the weight of the leather, polished surfaces carefully. Small tools created faint sounds on metal and wood. The gentle repetition echoed a calm mindfulness, like a heartbeat syncing with the pulse of the city itself. During mid-morning, distant sounds of the city, the clatter of carts, voices of merchants, the soft barking of dogs, blended into a quiet symphony. Each sound was acknowledged, layered into the rhythm of life, without distraction or hurry. Even the movement of shadows, slowly stretching across walls and tiles, became a visual meditation. Though retired, life still brought subtle social encounters. Fellow retired gladiators, neighbors, or merchants occasionally stopped by. Conversations were slow, deliberate, often reflecting on simple topics: the ripening of fruit, the angle of sunlight, small city changes, or the gentle art of observation. Words carried weight, but silence often carried more. Occasionally, a student might arrive, quietly bowing, and ask advice. "Master, how did you remain calm when the crowd roared?" The old gladiator would smile faintly, voice soft and measured. "Observe, breathe, and feel each step. Let nothing rush your mind. Strength comes not only from the body, but from patience and thought." The young listener would nod, absorbing the lesson as much in silence as in words. Afternoons sometimes passed in small excursions, observing city rooftops, listening to distant market sounds, tracing patterns in the garden's layout, or even walking slowly along the riverbank. Every sense engaged: the texture of stones beneath sandals, the warmth of the sun on the skin, the scent of herbs or baked bread carried by breeze. Time itself seemed to slow, each moment elongated, giving space to reflection and meditation. Part 15. The Quiet of Night and Dreams. Night fully settled over the city. Lanterns flickered along narrow streets, casting elongated shadows on the cobblestones, while the soft murmur of distant fountains and occasional footsteps created a gentle, unbroken hum. The retired gladiator lay on a simple mat in his room or courtyard, the cool night air brushing against his skin, carrying subtle scents of herbs, baked bread, and damp stone. He allowed his thoughts to drift, moving through past battles not as moments of triumph or fear, but as lessons, intricate patterns of movement and human connection. Each memory lingered slowly: the sensation of sand underfoot in the arena, the warm sun reflecting off polished armor, the subtle glance exchanged with a fellow gladiator in quiet camaraderie. His breathing remained deliberate, each inhale and exhale a slow, rhythmic tide that anchored him to the present. Dreams approached gently, almost like memories flowing forward. In dreams, he walked through arenas empty of crowds, feeling the smooth stone beneath his sandals, hearing only the echo of his own breath. Shadows of past opponents moved softly, teaching him again about balance, patience, and observation. Each dream unfolded without rush, each movement deliberate, each sensation carefully noted in mind and body. Part 16. Reflections on Mortality and Legacy. As sleep deepened, thoughts turned naturally to mortality. The body, once vibrant and powerful, now moved with deliberate care, mindful of every ache, every scar. The mind, however, felt lighter, layered with knowledge gained through decades of endurance, reflection, and observation. He thought not of death with fear, but as the final rhythm in the cycle of life, a moment that demanded mindfulness and acceptance. He reflected on the legacy he could leave, not in grandeur or wealth, but in subtle knowledge passed to students, the quiet influence on neighbors, the lessons embedded in daily routines. Patience, awareness, emotional control, deliberate movement, observation of the world, all these small threads would weave a quiet but enduring presence in the fabric of the city. Even the smallest sensory experiences became lessons. The warmth of sunlight at dawn, the smell of herbs in a courtyard, the soft clatter of distant carts, the texture of worn stone beneath his hands, each a reminder of life's fleeting beauty, each a meditation on survival and endurance. Part 17. Dawn and the Continuity of Life. As dawn approached, the first hints of light spread slowly across rooftops, touching the courtyard tiles with a soft golden glow. The retired gladiator arose, stretching carefully, feeling each muscle, tendon, and joint awaken. The city gradually came alive. The distant call of merchants, the soft sound of water from fountains, birds stirring in the trees, the faint aroma of baking bread drifting through narrow streets. Breakfast was prepared slowly, bread torn carefully, olives pressed gently, cheese portioned with attention. Each bite was meditated upon, flavors, textures, and aromas fully appreciated. As he walked through the courtyard or garden, he observed small details: the subtle movement of leaves in the morning breeze, the play of light across stone walls, the tiny insects navigating the soil. Each small observation layered the present with mindful awareness. Students arrived soon after, and teaching resumed with deliberate patience. Footwork, posture, handling of wooden training weapons, every motion emphasized, every lesson repeated slowly, each correction given softly. Observing the students, he saw himself reflected in them. Patience, curiosity, awareness growing slowly, one deliberate movement at a time. Part 18. Walking through the city and observing life. The retired gladiator walked slowly through the quiet streets of Rome, sandals brushing lightly against worn cobblestones. The early sun filtered through narrow alleys, casting warm patterns on stone walls. Every sound, every scent, every texture was noticed. The soft clink of a distant metalworker, the faint aroma of bread baking, the gentle rustle of leaves in a small garden tucked between buildings. He paused often, letting his gaze linger on small details: a child chasing a stray dog, a merchant arranging pottery, sunlight glinting off a rooftop tile. Each movement, each interaction in the city became a lesson in observation. His mind moved slowly, reflecting on the interconnectedness of lives, the quiet rhythm of the city, the subtle ways in which patience, awareness, and presence shaped human experience. Along the way, a student or young neighbor might fall into step beside him. They spoke little but shared glances, small gestures, and measured breathing, a silent mentorship passing from one generation to the next. Every conversation, every pause, every observation reinforced patience, calm, and mindfulness. Part 19. The Passage of Time and Subtle Changes. Days, weeks, and months flowed gently. The retired gladiator observed the slow changes in the city and the courtyard garden, the flowers blooming in succession, leaves turning with the seasons, rooftops weathering under sun and rain. He noted small changes in himself as well: strength subtly fading, wisdom quietly accumulating, memory sharpening in reflection rather than urgency. Daily routines provided structure: stretching in the morning, slow meals, careful tending of plants, deliberate training with students, meditative walks through the city. Each task, no matter how small, became a reflection of experience, a practice in mindfulness. The flow of time itself became a companion, teaching him to move with it rather than against it, to notice every sensation, every shift in light, every whisper of wind. Evenings remained moments of quiet reflection. Lanterns flickered on as shadows deepened, fountains whispered softly, and distant voices faded into a calming, continuous hum. Thoughts drifted naturally. Past battles, fleeting fame, friendships formed, lessons learned. Each recollection was neither rushed nor mournful, only gently observed and integrated into his understanding of life. Part 20. Philosophical Musings and the Human Experience. In moments of stillness, he reflected on the nature of human life. Strength alone was not enough, nor was fame permanent. The true legacy lay in endurance, observation, mindfulness, patience, and the capacity to reflect on experience without being bound by it. Every minor gesture, every small observation, every deliberate step was a thread in a larger tapestry of living. He thought of fellow gladiators, some long gone, some living quietly in other parts of the city. Their victories, mistakes, fears, and resilience remained vivid in memory, not as spectacle, but as testament to human perseverance. The lessons of camaraderie, the quiet moments of shared understanding, the subtle recognition of each other's humanity, these were the real victories that endured beyond the roar of the crowd. As night approached once again, he sat quietly in his courtyard or garden. The soft breeze, the faint scent of herbs, the gentle murmur of water, and the shifting shadows of lantern light blended into a sensory meditation. Each breath, each heartbeat, each memory was observed fully, slowly, without rush. And as the city settled into deep quiet, he allowed himself to sink into restful contemplation, carrying the calm lessons of a long, lived, and observed life into sleep. Part 21. Nightfall and Deep Reflection. The night fully settled over the city. Lanterns flickered softly along quiet streets, shadows stretched across stone walls, and the gentle murmur of fountains echoed like a lullaby. The retired gladiator moved slowly through his courtyard, every step deliberate, feeling the warmth of the day lingering on the stones beneath his feet. The cool night air brushed against his skin, carrying the faint scent of herbs, baked bread, and damp earth, a tapestry of sensory detail that invited calm, attentive reflection. He sat on a low bench, arms resting lightly, eyes half closed, mind drifting through decades of memory. Battles, training, moments of camaraderie, fleeting applause in arenas, all unfolded gently, without urgency, like pages in a slowly turning scroll. Each memory was observed fully, not clung to, not dismissed, but acknowledged as part of a life lived deliberately and consciously. Soft whispers of wind, distant voices, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional splash of water from the fountain all became part of a rhythmic meditation. He breathed slowly, deeply, noticing the rise and fall of his chest, the subtle weight of his body, the gentle pulse in his veins. Each sensation, each memory, each breath was a reminder of survival, endurance, and the quiet accumulation of wisdom. Part 22. The Final Contemplation and Legacy. In the deepest quiet of night, the retired gladiator reflected on the continuity of life. Strength and fame had been temporary, but mindfulness, patience, observation, and the careful cultivation of awareness endured. He thought of the students he had taught, the people he had touched, the subtle influence of his life beyond the arena. This was the true legacy, small, enduring, quietly woven into the fabric of the city and its people. The world outside continued its gentle rhythm, shadows shifting, lanterns flickering, distant footsteps, soft murmurs, the breeze carrying aromas of night blooms and warm stone. Each sound, each scent, each subtle movement became a meditation on the impermanence and beauty of existence. He allowed his mind to drift toward sleep, thoughts merging past and present. The roar of the arena softened into a distant echo, replaced by the calm of ordinary life, deliberate routines, small joys, and reflective moments. Memories of battles, lessons learned, friendships, losses, and quiet triumphs all settled like gentle ripples on still water. As the city slept and the night deepened, he felt a profound sense of connection to his body, his mind, the people around him, and the life he had lived. Every breath, every heartbeat, every shadow, every scent was part of the slow, unending rhythm of existence. With this awareness, he allowed himself to sink fully into rest, carrying the calm, reflective lessons of a long and observed life into the quiet comfort of sleep.